Time Management for Student by Dr. Vijay Aggarwal. Chapter number 3, Distribution of Time. One of the most common questions that I am asked very often by students from all age groups, which would certainly be on someone else's mind right now, if not yours, is that how long and how many hours should we study? And another question why is asked equally often is for how long should we sleep? Through I have sung across this question quite often. One question I don't remember being asked by a student is for how long should we play? What I gather from this experience is that no student has any confusion regarding the amount of time he should spend playing. Either they already spend time playing as they should, or they never venture out of play at all. Leaving this aside for the time being, I shall move ahead to share with the three main concerns of our students regarding time. How many hours should we spend studying? For how many hours should we sleep? And after studying a few days in a routine, we get bored. How do we deal with that? Through these are three different questions. They all have a single answer. Let us see how. All of us, including students, should divide our time in three parts, which are time we spend doing our daily works, time we spend doing our primary task, and idle time. Now let's just understand this concept in detail. Time we spend doing our daily work. To maintain our body and physical vitality, we need to perform certain activities and regularity. Performing these activities regularly ensures our physical well-being, and without them, our entire system is disrupted. Only a person who ensures his own well-being and takes care of himself and his body can take care of others. That's the reason why we need to take care of our body, which harbors our mind and soul. If we do not ensure the health and well-being of our bodies, then all of our efforts would be futile. We need to keep our bodies in proper shape and in the best of health. The importance of this we would understand if we ask an unhealthy man who is always a victim of some disease or the other, or a person who is physically challenged. Our body has a few necessities which on no amount can be overlooked. It needs proper food, fresh and healthy food, rich in vitamin and minerals, which would ensure its proper functioning. It needs proper sleep so that the different muscles group may relax and the various process of repairing the wear and tear of muscles and the replacement of cells may take place. It needs proper exercise and work out to keep it fit and active always. What I have seen through my experience is that most of the people, especially students, do not care about all these things at all, or in a certain cases they are obsessed with it, and caring about their physical well-being is all that they do, both of which are not advisable. Normally it is advised that in day of 24 hours, one-third, that is 8 to 9 hours, should be devoted to activities which relate to the primary maintenance of the body, including sleep. My assumption is, provided that we are not suffering from insomnia, we all sleep a bit more than required. The problem with most of us is not insufficient sleep, but sleeping in excess. Let's try to understand and address the problem now. Why do we always feel sleepy? Sleep is a vital requirement of our body, and on no account can we compromise on it. Researchers have proven that sleep is mandatory for the proper functioning of the body and mind. Lack of sleep affects the body adversely and also affects the memory of a person. If we do not sleep for 2 days at a stretch, we feel unless dizzy and the clarity in our thinking process is lost. What I believe is that in the same way as with insomnia is a cyclic disorder, excessive sleep is also a cyclic disorder which has risen from the irregularity of our schedule. Through this day on, one find cases of many lifestyle oriented and Cyclic disorder. The disorder related to sleep is primarily psychological, where excessive tension, worry, and pressure cause the lack of sleep. Excessive relaxations, carefree attitude, and lack of purpose cause excessive sleep. Physicians and psychologists believe that on an average, a person requires 6 hours of sleep every day. This isn't just approximation in which an hour may be added or subtracted according to the psychological and physical requirement of a person. For example, Mahatma Gandhi used to sleep only for 4 hours. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam sleep for 3.5 to 4 hours. It is said that nobody ever found out when Einstein slept. All these people used to sleep less, not because they had sleeping disorder, but because they knew that a lot depends on them and they had a lot to achieve. To make out time to go that extra mile, they reduced their hours spent sleeping. All of these people mentioned above used to do rigorous mental work, which was in no way easy, and with this little sleep, they successfully managed to accomplish their goal. The point to be noticed here is that they never were these people victim of any psychological or major physical disorder due to lack of sleep. They all lived and still live a long and healthy life. The most important conclusion derived out of this discussion would be that sleep is primarily of two types: biological sleep and psychological sleep. People who work rigorous throughout the day, be it mental work or physical work, seldom complain of sleep disorder. Getting exhausted after the day's work, they fall into proper and deep slumber. In the same manner in which when we are deprived of food for a long time, we can eat much more than our actual capacity, and even our taste buds become more active. A person who works diligently throughout the day has a peaceful and undistributed sleep. People who work in the fashion, when they require more sleep, their intensity is increased rather than the hour. The point to be understood here is that the deeper on sleep, the lesser hours of sleep are required by him. Most of the people do not understand this. They do not work as hard as they should throughout the day. They even sleep off at times during the day and then complain of sleepless night. Since everybody is sleeping, they also sleep. They are able to sleep for a few hours or so, but it is not the same as the deep slumbers they would enjoy after day's work. As a result, even though they have slept, they still feel sleepy throughout the day. The phenomenon continues for days, then weeks and months, till it becomes a habit. They are unable to sleep properly in the night, and when they wake up, they are still drowsy and lethargic. As I said earlier, the first kind of slumbers is biological. Both physicians and psychologists agree on the point that physically, on an average, a human being needs 6 hours of sleep per day. But still, if one is feeling drowsy and lethargic after that, it is only mean that the slumber hasn't been deep enough, or in some cases the person may be suffering from some titular psychological disorder. To be honest, our body does not require more than 6 to 7 hours of sleep in a day. If we are sleeping in excess, it is not because of our physical exhaustion, it becomes our mental or psychological reason, which vary from person to person. I believe that there are some specific psychological reasons to this problem. The primary one being lack of interest in the work at hand. We do not work not out of choice but out of compulsions, and whenever we send our brain the signal of disinterest, it becomes less responsible and inactive. As a result, we feel sleepy. If we give it stimulus of interest in the same manner in which if we pour some water to the roots of a plant which has almost died due to the heat, it is re-energized and revitalized. Our brain too springs back to life. Your lethargy and desires to sleep gives way to vigorous. Consider this example. If you go off to sleep at 11 in the night and you have in mind that you have to get up and 5 in the morning to study, you are not able to wake up. This is so because you find your studies very boring, and to you all the effort is getting up this early does not seem worth it. Now consider that you are a football fan and love to play the game. Imagine further that you have joined the local football club and you need to wake up at 5 in the morning for the big game. You are up at about by 4:30, all dressed and teeming with excitement, looking forward to the game. Why do we think that we have in such a way? After all, we are still the same individual with the same body and mind, who thought that he needs slumbers more than anything else. Who must have guessed the answer? I remember an incident in which a student came up to me with a question. He told me that when he was in the class 10, he would get up early in the morning at 4 and study every day. And throughout the day, he wouldn't feel sleepy and would be quite normal and energetic. Then why he wanted to know, would he not wake up and before 7 nowadays that he was in class 11, he would wake up early day at 7 now and still feel lethargic and sleepy throughout the day. Why was it so? I answered, you must have lost your interest in study now, to which he did not agree. His score fell down way below what he had scored the previous year. What I believed was that it was not because he couldn't wake up early in the mornings that his score fell so low. It was because he had lost interest in his studies and he couldn't score well. It had just been 15 days since we had this conversation that he come up to me and told me that he was changing his stream from science to humanities. It was clear to me and to him now that he had not have interest in the matter of science. Till class 10 he had an easy going to there were no choices and one had to study all the subjects. Now the going was getting tougher for him as he has choice to make, and when he chose a stream which did not suit his interest, he began to feel sleepy and couldn't wake up early to commence his studies. Trust me that a person feels sleepy only when he knows what he would have to do on waking up. Do not think that would interest him. If he is able to change this situation, he wouldn't feel lethargic at all. All efforts are futile without a healthy body. I don't know what I would get for an answer if I ask you the question that how many hours do you keep aside everybody to look after your body and maintain it. From some I wouldn't get any an answer to at all, which is indeed sad. Whatever we are able to achieve in this life, whatever task we undertake and complete, it's all because our will and enthusiasm is supported by a healthy body. Our body is a unique instrument provided to us by nature, which not only affects our lives, but state of health, but also live of the people who are close to us, live of people in the society, and finally live of the people in the nation. Unhealthy individuals give rise to an unhealthy nation. Therefore, a healthy body not only gives rise to the healthy individuals, but is also the cornerstone of a healthy nation. I would like you to take care of your health and devote some time to your body every day. Holding fast to this idea, there is a very famous saying in Arabic: a person who has health has hope, and a person who has hope has everything. This has been understood and practiced by all great men. I have seen with my own eyes Nelson Mandela, the great leader from South Africa, bricks walking through the corridors of the Rashtrapati Bhavan in the year 1996 as he couldn't go out of his walk due to the rain. Former President of Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma used to go for walk in the morning as well as evening despite of a pain in his leg. Gandhiji called it the queen of exercise and used to go for a walk himself daily. A long life does not guarantee success, neither is it necessary for being successful. However, a healthy and long life doesn't increase our odds to succeed. Politicians, writers, and artists are most successful after the age of 60, provided that they maintain a healthy body. If Mahatma Gandhi was not blessed with a long life of 79 years, would be able to fight for the nation cause for so long and able to assert with his own hand the freedom of India. In this way, if a person ignores the health, he is not only wasting his present but also creating obstacles for his future. What we conclude from our discussion that you should stay healthy and active and develop your immunity against diseases. If you do so, you would not fall ill very often and would not be deviated from your goal on the ground of ill health. To develop a physical well-being of this kind, it is mandatory that you devote a few hours every day to exercising and working out. If you can spare just 1 hour every day for these activities, which would help you to maintain your body and improve your health, it would energize you immensely and at the same time develop your immune system immensely, so that your body may resist all diseases and illness. 1 hours invested in your health every day on an average would return to your 4 extra hours daily, which according to me a worthwhile investment. Every little effort is worthwhile. Apart from the time spent sleeping and the time devoted by us to take care of our health, every day we need to undertake a few small tasks that are inseparable part of our daily routine. These include taking a bath, eating, pursuing, or hobbies, etc. These activities are not irrelevant at all, are an integral part of our lives. We should develop a habit to do all these things efficiently and their proper time, no matter how small a chore they may seem to be. We would never regard them as useless and give them their due importance. We should never procrastinate doing all these things. Do them with full intent. Mostly what I have seen is that students regard the time spent having their meals to be total waste and often hurry through it, unless of course they are in a restaurant in somebody's company. The reason behind this is that when one is having meals at home, one thinks that it is an utter waste of time, and the faster one finishes it, the better. Whereas as in restaurant, one enjoy himself. What we need to understand is that no work by itself of less importance or relevance, and no work is of great importance. It is the person who is working and the way he works that determines how great the work is. In this way, no work is unimportant. This is why whatever task we come across in our everyday lives, no matter how small or unimportant they may seem, it would be undertaken with utmost attention and involvement. If you try to follow this principle, you would find that in a matter of few days, you would be able to undertake these chores with much more efficiency, and they would take less of your time. One has to do what it has to do. It cannot be neglected. Planning your daily schedule. We all have heard and read about dreams and the many purposes in they solve. Many of us have even had the opportunity to visit a few of them, but I doubt if you having ever noticed or read about the piece of land and that surrounds the reservoirs of a dam. The land which surrounds the reservoirs is generally marshy, and if we dig into it, in no time we reach the water table. This phenomenon is a bit intriguing, as the land in the same regions which would be just a few meters from the marsh is absolutely dry, and on digging it, we would find that the water table is reached by digging quite deep under the ground. If we try to reason this phenomenon, we reach a dead end as there are no cracks in the dam, so that the water may seep away. If you give it a bit more thought, you would realize why I picked up this particular topic at all. The water seeps away from the reservoir of the dam in the same fashion as in the which time slips away from our fist. Through there are no imperfections in a dam, but it is not divided of force, and not are we. We never can or nor are able to figure out how our time flies by hand, slips from our fists like a clutch of sand from the break of dawn till the end of the day, when we finally shut our eyes awaiting the sweet slumber. But if we want to succeed at all in the art of time management, and henceforth in our circular and professional life, monitoring our time and the waves we spend, it is a needed imperative. We would discuss this in detail in the forthcoming chapter. For now, it would be sufficient to know that the only thing that is responsible for the phenomenon and which can be molded and changed in our daily schedule, the way we approach our daily chores, our attitude towards our work, and the way we arrange our priorities, and nothing but the many pores through which time slips away from our vast daily reserve. We'll leave the discussion on this point for this time. We can move on the other important topic. Broaden your horizons. All those thoughts, those feelings, those activities which are triggered by the fuel of selfishness, jealousy, hatred, and revenge, which are trivial in nature, hinder the processes of our evolution. If any work is done with these feelings and motives behind it, it would narrow our thinking and pollute our emotions. These feelings force us to do the lewdest of activities, which is forever work against our development. If these feelings are predominant in our minds, they sap away the warmth of our heart and turns us into cold and unfeeling beings. Before achieving our success, we should be clear in our minds as to what success means to us. Whatever we achieve shall perish, our struggle shall be forgotten, but one thing that would remain with us forever, which we would bear in our souls throughout our lives and the lifetime to come, is the lessons learned and the experiences gained in the journey to success, which is forever more important than the end. Contradictory to this, when we feel love in our hearts, respect all living beings, and complete with none but ourselves to forever improve and prosper, pleasing the same for our fellow beings, we achieve the highest. In this way, broaden our horizons of both thoughts and action. You might think that at this point I have deviated a bit from my purpose of writing this book and the scenario of time management, but trust me, if this hadn't been important, I wouldn't have brought this topic up at all. After all, I am the one talking in detail about time management. Why in the world would I take your time if all this haven't integral to the process as why in the world would I take your time if all this was not integral to the process? As you read on and as you start applying the techniques suggested in this book, you would understand why I emphasize on these things which may seem irrelevant to you now. Above all, it is very important that we feel good about ourselves. We all are splendid creatures, blessed with eternal intellect and knowledge. It is just for us to discover it. It is when we will love ourselves, love our work, and the way we work, that the mind finds peace and the body resonates with some vibrations. How blessed we are that we are on this beautiful planet where everything is possible, nothing is beyond our capabilities. We are eternal beings having our own individuality and differences, but at the same time sharing a life of harmony and joy. Every day when you wake up in the morning, consider yourself blessed that you are given this beautiful day, which would be loaded with opportunity for you. Feel the joy with which the sun shimmers, the world cheers, and the flowers bloom. It is when we enliven ourselves with such eternal happiness that whatever we desire, whatever we want come on our way, When we fall in love with ourselves, everything seems brighter, everything seems to be new, and all goals seems achievable. We start paying more attention to our work and get better engrossed in it. As a result of being happy, we attract more and more things into our lives which make us happy. We attract more and more opportunities that would make us successful. Whatever task you undertake, you do it better than you ever did before. The only reason why this happens is that now your mind is working is harmoniously with your body. A happy mind is never fatigued. It is a forever sharp and responsible. On the contrary, an unhappy mind is forever dull, looking for excuses so that it doesn't have to exert itself. Where a happy mind sets us free, alleviates us, and makes us a success, and an unhappy mind forever pulls us down and keeps us away from success. The good news is whatever to be happy by thinking about all which is positive, or be unhappy by forever looking for flaws and shortcomings, is our own choice. Harmony with nature. Nature is the creator of everything that was, everything that is, and everything that would be. Nature symbolizes power and efficiency. Nature works effortlessly with complete perfection and diligence. Nature is very cause behind the creation of human being, and it created us in such a way that we would fit into a genetic plan. In the same way as it designed the camel to traverse the mighty dunes and gave it a hum so that it may store water to survive the extreme desert conditions, the way in which it designed the Arctic fox and the reindeers so that they may have thick food to cover their bodies in the harsh winters. It created us human perfectly designed to survive and evolve and fit into a genetic plan for the universe. So this principle is very simple and direct. The more we align ourselves with nature, the more successful we would be. Nature molds and shapes everything, be it a landscape or the things being according to its own will, according to what would suits them best. If we are out of alignment with nature, it would work against us, and if we align ourselves with it, it would work with us and every step and bringing physical and mental peace to us. If we try to find out what all activities there are in our lives that are out of alignment, we would find it hard to identify any. The reason behind it is, as we have been practicing those activities for so long, they haven't taken the form of habit and we don't find them unnatural anymore. Let me now direct your attention to some of these activities. The sun is not only the symbol of light, but also the source of all energy the world has known till date. Its majestic presence in the sky corresponds to the energy in our bodies and minds. As the sun rises every day, its energy is the source of all that we call life. As it sets, darkness is unshared upon an exhausted and sleepy earth. Whatever activities we undertake, whatever they are, small or big in nature, they all require energy. Hence, it would be forever in our interest that we complete a major portion of our daily work during the day. It is not that we are not capable of working deep into the nights, but if we try doing so regularly for a few years, we are sure to develop mental, physical, and psychological disorder. In my life, I have come across many students who study late night. I have seen them studying till 2 or 3 in the night and then wake up at 10 or 11 in the morning. It is very common a practice these days. In fact, I couldn't be surprised if you are only one of the students practicing it. Through it might have turned into a habit, and staying awake late at night is no longer a challenge to you. It is not advisable from the point of view of time management. When we sit down to study at night, our mind is already exhausted and full of the lesson learned and the activities conducted throughout the day. When we sit down to study with an exhausted mind, our study is not effective. On the contrary, if we go to sleep early and wake up early, we could find that the efficiency of our mind, its grasping power and power to memorize, has increased manifold. According to some experiments conducted by me in my own student's life, when the mind wakes up fresh from a good night's sleep, a chapter that would otherwise takes 3 to 4 hours can be completed within 2 hours. The difference between a tired mind at the end of the day and fresh mind is the same as the freshness of a flower. We drop our dew early in the morning and the freshness it retains till late in the evening. Another example is when after a long day of hard work we just jump into our beds and fall asleep. Many times not even changing into our night robes. In my life, I have seen extreme cases where people sleep even with their shoes on in the winter. It is possible to have an undistributed and deep sleep if one believes this way. Certainly not. You might be sleeping for the prescribed numbers of hours, but as your sleep is not as deep or undistributed as it could be. You do not feel fresh when you wake up. Swimming against the tide may be considered to be heroic, but it is not wise or sensible to do so. It is only at some point of time in our life that we need to summon our courage and perform heroic acts. But using our rationality is not something that we can trade off. Shunning dependence. One good thing about students being in a hostel is that they learn to be self-dependent. When they are left to fend themselves, they learn the most. Unlike people who just stay at home and study depending on their parents for every requirement, they learn to do everything that is important to them by themselves, which is indeed commendable from the point of view of time management. We as human beings need to constantly grow and develop. A little plant which is forever overshadowed by a huge tree never grows into a tree itself. It is when we stand in a world of opposition all by ourselves, taking the blows head on, when we are scorched by the sun, drenched by the rain and cooled by the winter, when we stand in the middle of the machinery of the world that will learn its secrets and evolve. When we are dependent on others for all the small things in life, our time and all utilization is also dependent on them. It is like giving away the power of controlling yourself and your time to someone else. I couldn't take a bath because my mother did not switch on the geyser for me. I couldn't study because my dad forgot to purchase a book I had told him to. I was late as the laundry boy didn't come on time with my clothes. These are but a few examples that many of use as an excuse for not doing what would have been done. We are arguing with using these examples as our reasons, which is absurd. There is a phrase which I had read as a long man and had served my purpose all my life. It is going to be, it's up to me. Cease to be dependent on anyone for anything. It is your life and you are the sole person in control. Why let anyone else determine your success or failure? Simplicity. Many of us do not like the idea of simplicity, but let me tell you that simplicity is very integral to the process of time management. Simplicity is being oneself. It is known oneself and being devoid by any complexity. It is about being simple and straightforward, saying what we believe in and believing in what we say. It is the nature tendency of all human beings to assert and strive for what they want and hold dear, to assert and propagate what they believe to be true. It is only when we interfere with this nature desire that we give rise to complexity of character, which is a major hindrance to success and fulfillment. Limitation. Following the flock as to how to dress up, what a profession to choose as a career, the way of talking, these all are factors which take us away from ourselves and cause of a serious case of mistaken identity, which forbids us from knowing our true selves. Our first step towards calculating the virtue of simplicity would be to know what we actually are, to let go of all the mind blendings, to groom ourselves as much as required, neither less nor more, to curb imitation. and work towards what we truly feel. To dress up so that we may be comfortable both physically and mentally in what we wear. As far as dressing up is concerned, it totally depends on one's professions or the profession on aspires to be in. An entrepreneur dresses up differently from a sportsman. Their attire suits their professional needs. Average people low in ambition and low in convention. After talking about the trend and trained to follow what the successful people wear, while people who are successful set the trend unknowingly, it is for us to decide whether we want to follow the flock or be trend setters ourselves. And believe me, the following things that can be called trendy is what is comfortable and suited to one's requirement. If you are a girl, you would agree that wearing heels every day is highly uncomfortable. Not only does it reduce the pace with which you walk, wearing them regularly can also cause several back aches, but still people wear them, justifying that the trend of their time. Wearing high heels is not in itself a bad thing, but before you wear them, you need to ask yourself, is that what makes you feel most comfortable physically and mentally? If yes, then go ahead. The time which is lost in the creation of the image which is totally alien to what we actually are is enormous. Fashion is a rebellion against what is old, and us hearing in what is new. And rebellion is a very positive thing, provided that is not with our own actual self. If we rebel against our own inner self, we work against our own progress. What we wear, how we look, the way we talk, the way we address people should be determined by the spirit of self-assertion, not imitation. Consider this example. Albert Einstein was one of the most evolved human being the world had ever known. The way he worked was like an ascetic. He did not care till what length his hair grew. He did not care if he wore socks of different colors or fasten up a tie around his waist. If he couldn't find a belt, he understood the value of time and had no time even to get a haircut. This is one of the extreme cases. I personally do not advise these activities to students, but however, my point here is to explain on my personal visit to certain colleges which are among the best in the country. I have seen students pretending to be an intellectual by growing their hair long like that of Einstein. Now you see for yourselves how badly they are missing the point. They are doing exactly the same thing that Einstein refused to waste time on. The phrase I have coined for such students is just pseudo intellectuals. If you aspire to make music, become a rock star, then your music should have a substance. Music is what resonates with your soul. It is what is in your blood, not in the length of your hair or numbers of tattoos you have across your body. The world of universities today is full of wannabes, but nobody wants to be himself. Einstein was a trend setter, and he set the trend through his work, through his intellect and his marvelous discoveries. Unknowingly, the rest are people who but follow the flock. The simpler your life is, the more it is divided of complexities, the more you stand to gain, not only as far as management of time is concerned, but also professionally. We are not all Einsteins, but we are special in our own way, and preserving this individuality and this simplicity of our characters is what I emphasize upon. Being organized. It is good to be busy and always be engaged in some work or the other, and most people are. But what I have found is that most people are not busy because they are utilizing their time to do something which is constructive. They are busy because they are disorganized. I don't know in which category you would fall, but it is forever in your interest to ask yourself this question and ascertain whatever you are busy because you are engaged in a constructive piece of work, or you are busy just because you had been careless and disorganized earlier. Often I have seen people being careless and not keeping things in their proper places, and when they are unable to find things they sing and shout at others. Doing this, they not only waste their own time by pretending to be busy but also the time of others. For examples, I have seen people keep things whatever they please according to their convenience and later looking around for them everywhere and wasting time on it. I have seen students giving their notebooks and pens wherever they please. I have seen them moving their shoes wherever they want and littering about their houses. I have seen people applying for a duplicate passbook from a bank 2 months after having opened their account. These are but a few examples. Most of the people appear to be busy because they are not organized. Living in a place which is disarray, not keeping things in their proper places is a very bad habit. Physical arrangement of things represent the arrangement of a person's thoughts. A person who is calm, who is focused, who would always keep these things arranged in their proper places. On the contrary, a person who is forever in confusion, whose thoughts are always messed up and contradict each other, would always lives in a place which is in disarray. Keeping things in these proper places are not only saves our time but also help us to be organized in our work, which leads to a psychological organization of thoughts and development of conventional in thoughts. The irony is that since most people have gotten so acclimated to the habit that they do not even realize that they are disorganized. Anyway, now that you know, I would advise you to take steps towards organizing your stuff and thereby organize your thoughts and life. Start keeping things in their appropriate places. Keep the books on your shelf. Maintain a file for all important documents. Make it a habit to jot down in a diary all that is important and you need to remember. Keep the things back from where you remove them. Just start up with these simple steps and within a month or so you would find a completely different and organized you with ample time to your disposal. Working in the best possible way. There are numerous ways of doing a piece of work. The way in which we do our everyday work and complete our task, it is not necessarily the best of our most effective way, as I have discussed earlier. As a human being, our intellect and our ability to reason are the only qualities which have seen us through these thousands of years of survival and evolution. We need to apply the same today when it comes to work. In most cases, the way in which we work is either adopted by seeing somebody's working in a similar fashion or just following what have been practiced for ages. Here we need to apply our intellect and ask ourselves the question that is there is a better and a more effective way of doing the job. If there is, then why follow custom? The more effective way of doing our work is, the more time and energy we save. It is for us to find out best possible way of doing things which would be different according to the needs of different individuals. There are many different ways a task can be completed, but doing it in the most effective and the least time consuming and the effective way of what would be in our best intellect. The Hare and the Tortoise. You must have read the story about the hare and the tortoise. When you were in middle school, in the story, as we all know, the turtle wins not because it was the faster one, but because this pace of consistent throughout the race. The hare, on the other hand, having more speed and agility, becomes relaxed and discontinued its pace to take a nap. This often happens in real life. People who knew that they are the hare often slow down as they feel that they would be able to cover up later. But due to this misconception, they often stand to lose. The concept is about being consistent. Even if you are the hare and you are not consistent in your effort, you would lag behind. The tortoise, through the slower one, was consistent in his efforts and therefore won the race. And people who possess both a good pace and are consistent in their effort are easily the winners always. One thing we should keep in our mind regarding the pace of our work is that if we are not able to increase our pace of work to the desired degree, then we discovered at least see to it that our pace doesn't fall below what we currently have. The second thing integral to this is that we should forever look for new way and means to increase our pace. Solutions are always there, waiting to be found. No matter how grave the problems may seem to be, it is only when we don't strive sufficiently to solve our problems and give up midway that we fail. It's all about working smart. Working hard is very important and is indispensable to success in any field. But it is not the only quality that would see us through. Working smart, looking for new ways and means to do the same piece of work is what differentiates champions from winners. If we have a car, then why walk the 8-mile trip? Science has increased the pace with which we work many folds. For instance, these days many doesn't need to go to the library as all information you want is available on internet. If we know how to use it properly, we have it all and pace with which we work multiplies. Now I am about to share with you a few principles regarding the pace with which we work, which you might find interesting. The first is the principle of flow. Let me explain this to you using an appropriate example. Consider that there is a river with a volume of 1 lakh liter flowing at the rate 10 kilometers an hour. Under these prescribed circumstances, the river would be able to carry away load of 1000 kilograms. According to the principle, if we increase the quantity of water following the river, the amount of load could carry increasing in the same proportion. If the amount of water is following the river is doubled and the speed with which is not following is maintained, it is capable of carrying away 2000 kg of weight. Now, considering a case in which we are unable to increase the amount of following water in the river, but we increase the speed with which the water is following by 10 km per hour. Now the speed of the following river is 20 km per hour with the same volume of water as before. Can we make a wild guess as to how many kilograms weight would be able to carry along with it? Would it double? Would it increase 3 times or 10 times or 50 times? In all cases, your answer would be wrong. The ability of the river to carry the load would be increased 64 times if the speed with which the water is flowing is doubled. This principle of flow tells us that if we increase our speed, we may increase our abilities many folds. This is the reason why I am not able to give an appropriate answer to the particular question that the students from all the country have asked me many times, and the question is that how long they should study every day. What we have to realize is that the question is not about increasing the volume of water which is following the river. The question is about increasing the pace of our work, so that we complete large chunks of work in the little time and with much more intensity. The second thing is to be kept in mind here is that no principle is applicable as it is in practical life. It is the same as no mathematical formula or derivation if applicable in its absolute form in real life. For example, if I tell you that Mr. X earns rupees 500 by working every day for 4 hours while Mr. Y earns rupees 1000 working 8 hours per day, what amount of wealth would they be able to acquire in 20 years? Your simple mathematical answer would be that Mr. Y would acquire wealth that would be a double of what Mr. X would acquire in 20 years, and undoubtedly your answer would be correct mathematically, but what happens in a practical life would be far of the simple mathematical answer. This is because while Mr. X has a low income and spends all of it, while Mr. Y having a higher income is able to save money of it and invest in properly. Therefore, Mr. Y is also earning from his saving. As this would continue after 10 years, Mr. X's income would still remain equal to the expenditures. Therefore, the amount of wealth accumulated by him is particularly huge. While Mr. Y's income would be far more than that of double of Mr. X. Here, there could be another possibility that instead of working long hours, Mr. Y increasing the pace with which he works and finishes double the amount of work in the same time as Mr. X. Hence, we see that all principles should be customized by us accordingly to the life we want to lead and according to our desires. If we monitor each and every activity that we conduct in our everyday life, we would come across those activities in which we spend more time than we should. I'm not advising you to rush through your daily activities. What I'm saying is that spending more than a reasonable amount of time on a particular activity is literally killing your time. Research has it all the people who have accomplished extraordinary things in their lives have a peculiar characters in common. They all are brisk walkers. The pace with which they walk is a bit less than a jog. From Adolf Hitler to Mahatma Gandhi, all of them had a very brisk gait, and now we understood the reason why they realized the importance of their time and weren't willing to waste a bit of it. Having psychology, it had become their nature to walk at a faster pace than a normal man would. It is said that at the age of 78, the Mahatma walked so briskly that to keep up with him, one had to be consistently hopping and jogging. If you are a slow walker, this is where you can start changing things. How long do you spend taking a bath? The main purpose of taking a bath is to keep ourselves clean. Is taking a bath a ceremony if you like it had been for me? I was like this habit of wasting time while taking a bath, which I rectified later in my life. I would reaction the same from you. Would you believe me if I tell you that one young lady I accumulated with regards at least 1 hour and at most an hour and 15 minutes to finish her meal? I don't know how you would react to this, but personally seeing this left me I dumbfounded. Wasting time like this in a simple activity like eating, which normally doesn't take more than 20 minutes, is a crime. How much time do you take to dress up and groom yourself every day? It is a myth that dressing up and grooming ourselves slowly would help us to better look. After studying these phenomena minutely, I have found that if we try to save our time from where we spend in excess, like in the cases I have mentioned above, we save around 1 to 1.5 hours daily, which by no means is a bad deal. I have seen that the pace with which we work is an essential factor which determines our success in life. Working with an adequate pace and saving time from where we can are an integral part of time management. Always remember that one's pace despite how badly he wanted to succeed. People who maintain their pace of work who would forever move ahead in their endeavors in life. But mind you, speeding up is not synonymous with doing things hurried and in haphazard way. If we do so, we would further slow ourselves down. If the circumstances are favorable and the road is wide open for you, then there is no sense in driving your bike at 25 kilometers per hour. Here you must take the advantage of the circumstances and zoom away. If you know that you are the hare in the race of life, then there is no sense of comparing yourself with the turtles, because it is only in fairy tales that a tortoise competes with a hare. Keeping away from vices. We go through different phases in life, and amongst these, youth is the most important phase. Youth is the only phase in the human life which on one hand is the most adventurous and exciting phase, and on the other is the most taxing and prone to risk. It is the phase that we are full of energy and vitality and full of vigorous and ambitions. Our goals are high and we are all set to take off in their direction. It is in the phase that we feel strength in our arms and love in our heart. One moment we feel that we are invisible, and in the next we feel that we are not able to judiciously channelize our talents. It is also the phase in which our hormones start playing tricks on us, and for some of us most of the time spent in confusion and indecision. The reason I call this phase the most prone to risks is because in our youth we are full of ability and ambition. So many elements attract our attention, and it is for us to make the right choices and tell us from wrong. The choices made in the phase determine the prosperity of the right of our lives. The more we exert ourselves in the phase, the more we work hard, keeping our innermost desires in the forefront, the brighter our future is. So we find that this phase, these few years of our youth in which we are in the peak of our mental and physical well-being, are the most important years of our lives. It is in these years that we are confident of our abilities and we are open to absorption of knowledge, which would now place our life into the final cast. It is the phase in which our thoughts have begun to take shape, the scattered dreams have found a common conventions, and beliefs have found a new direction. What disturbs me is that I have seen a lot of talent with promising career missing it up by falling prey to vices to their youth. Teenagers getting addicted to drugs, becoming a ragging alcoholics, forming gangs and moves, and indulging in street fight are all global concerns for the youth today. What I mean to say here is that life is meant to be abundant, it is meant to be fulfilling journey of all self-discovery, and is too short to waste on the vices. Once we have fallen prey to them, they transform us, taking away from ourselves, our families, and our purpose in our life. The great entrepreneur G.D. Birla advised to his grandson Aditya when he went to study at MIT was eat only vegetarian food, never drink alcohol or smoke, keep early hours, switch off lights when leaving the rooms, cultivate regular habits, go for a walk every day, keep in touch with the family, and above all, don't be extravagant. These advice are not only beneficial from the point of view of entrepreneurship, but also from the point of view of a normal youth who is looking forward to success in his life. We need to discover our true selves and prevent ourselves from plugging into the dark. What I recommend is strict caution from these prowlings and vicious predators, which is capable of restricting our talents and reducing our longevity by substantial margin. Life is too precious and too beautiful to be traded off to them. It is to realize this, to make a conscious choice to stay away from them and cultivate habits that would usher success and well-being into our lives. The famous Japanese movie maker Akira Kurosawa always told his students to enjoy their lives as much as they wanted to, while exercising moderation, and warned them against our indulgence. Always remember that it's too much easier to maintain a good habit than it is to embrace a bad one. While cultivating a virtuous personality elevates us, brings to us happiness and success, falling prey to vices forever pulls us down as if it were into the dark and mysterious depths of black hole, from where even light cannot escape. All we are left with a life divided of self-belief, self-respect, and simplicity. Time devoted to the primary task. We all go through different phases in life, starting from the day we are born up till the day we die, and our immediate goal is different in each phase. For example, when we are infants, we spend most of our time sleeping, which is very essential for the growth and development of our body at that stage. When we grow a bit older, most of our time is spent in play, which balances our physical and mental development. As we grow further, now it becomes our purpose to strike a balance between study and play. Further, we step into adolescence, and the pleasures to complete and study harder begins to surround. Many of us begin to neglect our physical requirement to get adequate exercise at this stage, which is in no way a smart thing to do. And finally, when we enter into a professional, committing ourselves to it becomes our sole aim. In this way, in different phases of our lives, the goal we set and the requirement we have are different. Considering that you are a student, I believe that your primary goal is to gain as much knowledge as possible, so that it would come to your assistant throughout your life and help you to enter a specialized field of profession. Let us discuss now how much time we should devote to our primary task. As we have already discussed, our goal and priorities change as per our age and our state in terms of our physical and mental aptitude as we grow from an infant into a youth. The number of hours we spend sleeping is at first replaced by a balance between sleep and play, and then distributed among sleeping, playing, studying, whatever the case may be. If we are students at first, the number of hours we spend sleeping are constantly reduced to supplement the number of hours spent studying. After having substantially sacrificed our sleep, now we start stealing the hours from play, and as the pleasure mounts up, the hours spent playing are reduced to nil in many cases. When we go to high school, we find that the time spent studying in school is not sufficient at all in order to keep us our grades, and hence we need more and more time to study so that we may absorb whatever has been taught at school. My observation of successful people belonging to a varied range of professions bring me to conclusion that in order to succeed and achieve whatever we dream of, we must spend at least 1/3 of our time on the task which is of primary importance to us. Every day, that would mean around 8 hours of concentrated work with utter focus and devotion to do the trick. The question that arises here is that students generally feel that they are spending a lot of time studying at school, so isn't obvious that they are by any means fulfilling the basic requirements. If you reread any previous sentence, you would observe the difference. I do not know how well you are taught at your school and how much attention you pay to what is being taught. What you should be concerned about is 7 to 8 hours of focus and quality study. It may be done at a stretch if your capacity so permits. It may be done partially at school and partially at home, or it may be done completely at a school or at a home. The discretion is in every sense yours. Many young minds which aspire to be a Newton's, Einstein and Marconi's of tomorrow may differ with me at the point and argue that these people spend 20 out of 24 hours in their study and research. To them, my answer would be that if your work has become your source of self-discovery, you means to communicate with your soul, the canvas to paint your innermost desire, the source of your entertainment and the counterpoint of your love, then you are most welcome to work in the desired way. If your work has actually raised you to such height of consciousness, then mark my word that it is by your hand the destiny of mankind would be molded. If you do not feel that way yet, then it is better to reallocate your time doing all this important in the above prescribed way to take you to that stage. There might also be questions in your mind regarding the times when your parents and your teachers have asked you to study as much as possible. This statement, my friends, should always be taken with a pinch of salt. Most parents and teachers are also not familiar with your abilities and desires. So when they repeat the statement, it is more out of emotion than our rationality. What I believe is that studying is in the prescribed way and the same time having time for play and exercise, having time for friends and having time to enjoy life is the way it should be. Limiting ourselves only to our course books is no longer a wise thing to do. I personally know many students who do not spend as much time studying as their counterparts do, but by studying in a systematic way and on regular basis, they always scored more than the students who slogged. I have also known students who study for a long hours and are not able to score in their examination. The answer to this problem is regularity. Students who are regular in their studies doing a little better every day and forever better of them. than those who slack at the end moment. Not only does regularity give the abundant time and scope to spend in co-curricular activities and develop as a human being, it also forever helps them to score at the highest. All of us being students must be aware of term saturation point. Saturation point with regard to study is a point at which the brain has already had much to absorb and is not able to comprehend anymore. On reaching his point after extensive studying, it almost becomes impossible for the mind to absorb more. The most advice to this point would be to shut your books, but I have seen many students after reaching this point try to keep on studying or pretend to study. If mental satisfaction is what you are looking for, then go ahead. Otherwise, you are just fooling yourself and everybody around. The biggest challenge that students face is regularity. I have seen bombarded all my life by the question asked by students regarding regularity and also by their multiple excuses. Systematic study and regularity in studies in the basic ingredient required not only to score high marks but also to dig out enough time for ourselves so that we may enjoy our lives and to ensure that our development is all around. What I have found is that real behind why students are unable to study in the fashion is primarily psychological. Some of the factors are external while some of them are internal, but they all are primarily psychological. Some of the reasons are more excuses like a noisy neighborhood and interfacing sibling, etc. Other are the weather. Sometimes it is too cold to study and at other times it is too pleasant to be studying indoor. These are but excuses, and since it is who creates them, it would be also up us to deal with them. The only factor that determines our success and failure is that how badly we want to succeed. Most of us familiar with the name John Barrett, the person to whom we owe the invention of television. Barrett was homeless and unemployed till he was 32. Poverty and starvation were his only allies. He neither had wealth nor did he have resources. He never kept good health also. The only thing that he truly had was courage and hope. The circumstances and constraints under which the television was invented could not have been worse, but it was invented nevertheless. The first telephone was invented in a small dark and dumb room which was located on top of small electric shop situated in the noisiest crossing. The reason that I am telling you all these things is because I wanted you to know that if a person actually want to accomplish something, there is no stopping him. If people could do it, then why not you? It doesn't matter how true and relevant your excuses may seem. If they will strong enough, the path would undoubtedly be made. Now let's discuss a few techniques that would help you in your studies. Do you really want to study? Our Upanishads contains a very simple but vital line, which is that a person becomes whatever his innermost desires are. Whatever her dreams are, irrespective of it being good or evil, the idea he dwells upon day in day out, he became that without exception. The feeling, desires and dreams which are nested in the depths of our soul guide of our every step and determines our every action. These innermost desires are the element of which our feeling and emotion are composed. The sad part here is that most of us are loaded with desires, but there are few people who feel strongly about them. All of us want to lead a life of prosperity and well-being, but the problem here is that the way we feel about it is very shallow and devoid of convictional. People who do not feel deeply enough about their dreams and desires, who live on their ideas and feed their mind constantly with their stimulus, are the only ones who succeed in this. People action is backed with their innermost zeal to the victorious, hence no effort goes in vain. The way they feel about their dreams is so strong that all the doors begin to unlock, all the obstacles melt away, and they reach a unique plane in which there is a harmony of action and desire. And whenever there is a harmony of action and desires, miracles happens. This is the only way to consistency. When we feel it is in our hearts, We see it happening before our eyes, so it forever essential to feel first. If you want to wealth, then feel the abundance of you would like to live in. If you want to score high, feel the excitement to score, the excitement to the best and adoration of professors. If you want to be a scientist, then feel the science and wonders you would like to share with the world. This is the only way to consistency and prosperity of effort. When we feel strongly for something, the entire universe comes together to give us what we desire. It is also very essential here to know what your innermost desires are. Someone wants to be a doctor, but the rest may not correspond. The same feeling, maybe they want to be a painters or musicians, or maybe they want to be a politician and world leader. We all have different varied desires, discovering which are working towards which holds the key to self-discovery and the knowledge of our boundless potential. It is a very man to discover his innermost feeling and commitment himself to them. If we want to be a special, if we want to be at the center on dais with the world adoring and applauding us, if we want to be a special wing, then we need to work in a special way. Ordinary ways of working brings out ordinary results, while extraordinary ways to working bring about extraordinary results. Set your priorities right. As I believe that my all readers are mostly students, I assume that your priority would be to gain much knowledge as possible. Of course, if your goal is to not score high marks, but is charted along the entirely different path, say music, art or sport, then that would be your priority. The point here is that we should all be able to identify our priorities and get them right, no matter what they are. When we are in our students' lives, our mind is loaded with things we would like to do. Here is where our intellect should intervene and help us beat the cycles of instant gratification against long-term prosperity. In other words, this is known as prioritizing. Prioritizing does not mean pursuing only that things which is most important to us. It deals with listening the various activities that we like and then we should to do in order to decreasing importance, and then allocating our time accordingly. Whatever we feel the most for, provided that we have weighed it by rational, should be our priority and hence would take the most of our time. No work is unimportant and every work done with utmost efficiency is a means of self-discovery. It is for us to decide which work suits to us to the best and prioritize accordingly. Setting short-term goal. Is there in this book? I have taken incidents from the life of Thomas Edison and used them as example to clarify my point. And I would do not once again. Did you know that long before Edison ever invented the electric bulb, he made a public announcement that on the 4th September 1882 he would display the first electric bulb before the world. And as you might have guessed, it was the same day that he came up with his invention in front of the world despite of all hindrance. So you see how important deadlines are. What we need is to break up our long-term goals into smaller parts which we would achieve in a daily basis. If we do not give ourselves deadlines, the task is never done. You must have had an experience in our life in which your friend promised you that he would come over, but he never showed up. The reason, the date and time was not fixed. Similarly, we do not give ourselves deadlines as to when we would like to have our work completed. We seldom are able to get through with it. Whenever we see a date in front of us, a special day by which our task needs to be completed, our mind becomes tense and is flooded with ideas about how to complete our work by the specified date. When the session begins and we sit for school, we do not think that and worry about our exams. But as soon as the date sheet is out, everybody is a bit tensed and worried. Hence, everybody starts studying. His tension and worry born out of the acknowledgement of the inevitable, which is blessing in a disuse and help us to achieve our target while staying within the sound of time. Formulating a timetable and sticking to it. I have experienced a lot while I was a student and still continue to experiment to come up with a new technique that I would have saved my time. I have tried working without chalking our timetable, and I have also tried working in accordance once, and as a result of my experiments I have reached the conclusion that it is wiser to work with a timetable at the back of our minds than to work without one. When we have chalked out a timetable, not only does it help to us allocate our time judiciously, but it also act our map of the day. This prevents many wastage of time to the maximum possible extent. Chalking out a timetable also makes us a bit tense, which works as a boon and promotes us to work. Working without a timetable is similar to a river flowing without its water being restricted by its banks. The bank of a river channelizes its water and the untamable power therein, helping it to meet its final destination, the ocean. If the river flows without the banks to restrict it, the water gets dissipated and as a result evaporates. The same is the case when our time is not organized by the framework of our timetable. This is the reason I think that all of us should chalk out the timetable, which would enable us to set our priorities right, to allocate the time in hand judicially. Let's us now discuss the technique which would help us to frame a timetable. The timetable should be made keeping in mind a long-term objective. It shouldn't only pertain to a week or just 15 days. Since our goal is long-term our timetable should also be customized in a similar fashion. Since we need to study every day, have our meals every day, physically condition ourselves every day, and we haven't broken our long-term objective into short-term achievable targets, our timetable should be made in a such way that it would be perpetuate our efforts. While chalking out our timetable, we should have a frame of 6 days in our mind. We should try and strive towards following our timetable without any deviation. These 6 days, the 7th day, we should set ourselves free of these entanglements so that we may re-energize ourselves, set our mind free from all worries of the week, and be prepared to go into the next week anew. It is said that even God, the Almighty, while designing the universe, having worked unceasingly through the 6 days of the week, took 7th day off. According to me, if it is possible for the Almighty with His unbounded powers to get exhausted through the week's work and require some time for His leisure, then it would perfectly to be all right if you and I also allow ourselves some time off. The timetable should be an easy to follow and a practical one. We should make a mental note of the contingencies that might arise and plan our timetable accordingly. We cannot also ignore our social requirement, the requirement to interact with our family and friends, and the requirement to allow ourselves some free time between our busy schedules. If we ignore all of these requirements while framing a timetable, then it becomes a very difficult and monotonous one, and as a result we find it very hard and taxing to keep up with it. I would recommend you to always allow yourself some free time in this timetable so that you may utilize it in the case of these unpredictable circumstances and contingencies. If we allow ourselves some free time in our daily schedule, then whatever contingencies may arise, we would always have surplus time in our hands to meet them. The timetables would be framed keeping in mind the primary task, and all the other activities which we conduct on a regular basis will be molded according to that. For example, if you have decided to devote 5 hours on a daily basis to your study, then the rest of the activities which you would undertake throughout the day, like eating, sleeping and seeing your friends, would have to mold it in accordance with your primary objective. Here I would also like to tell you that different person have different abilities. If your capacity to work on a daily basis is comparatively low, then we should not be to extend it all of a sudden. If we try to frame a timetable believing that we would be able to extend our abilities from the very next day, then unmistakably our timetable would be flawed and we wouldn't be able to follow it with precision. Our timetable should be practical and achievable, one of the frame keeping in mind our own abilities. Framing a timetable is not that difficult task as it is implement it. This is because the process of controlling our mind and confining it within the realms of a fixed schedule is a very demanding task. I believe that we all know how electricity is generated. The water from a spring first needs to be stored in a reservoir before it can be let loose to rotate the turbine with the enormous force. Similarly, it is our mind that we need to retain and control so that it may release an unbounded potential. While following a timetable, we should learn to repeat our own word. Our focus should primarily be on objectives that we hold most dear, and achieving that daily objectives should be our primary motive. Even if we need to sacrifice the others less important activities in our schedule, procrastination should be avoided at any cost. The moment we procrastinate and tell ourselves that we are left with plenty of time, our entire schedule begins to get disrupted. Therefore, it always in our interest to complete our work within the achievable frame of time set by us in our timetable. Working as per requirement of our timetable should be conscious effort, not be added anxiety that would never break us. While embarking upon the process of following our timetable on daily basis, we might feel a bit unnerved at first. This is a very natural way to feel and we shouldn't worry about it. As we get into the habit of following our timetable on a regular basis, these feelings would slowly be replaced by the conventional and the will to follow it till the nth note. Whenever we complete a task that we are determined to do, our mind is filled with joy of accomplishment and the process is repeated time and again. It becomes our innate nature to work in this fashion and derive joy from our accomplishments. Where at first working in accordance with the timetable may have been a source of worry to us, later the timetable itself becomes the factor that would nullify all our anxieties. If we practice this regularity, it would begin to feel uneasy without having a definite schedule to work on. As a result, we would become far more systematic and organized, and the productivity of our time work would increase many folds. If there are few circumstances which do not allow you to follow your timetable and work in the prescribed fashion, you should try and find the reason to why these circumstances arise at all and attempt to deviate your freedom from your goal. If you do so, you would find that it is you who controls all the circumstances and contingencies, and it is you alone who can bring an end to them and hence ensure the utmost utilization of our time. As I have told you earlier to always allow yourself a gap in the timetable, now doing so would allow you to think about all these circumstances that are hindering your progress and deal with them appropriately. What may be also reflect in the aftermath of your desired disorganization of work, but trust me, this would only be temporary and would need to be internally tracked with. Another very important things that I would recommend you to do on a daily basis before you go to sleep in the process of recollection analysis. You should always spare some time in your timetable of these activities. These activities help us to reflect upon your daily efforts and the way you have been working throughout the day. They also help in determining all the bottlenecks that hinders your process. It is through this rectification that we enhance and improve our process of working. Analysis of our daily work help us to understand what we are doing better. If this process is not followed, then for a few days we might follow our schedule with efficiency, but soon our work would be disrupted, and if this process continues slowly, we would stop adhering to the timetable prepared by us. As I have discussed earlier, a major part of time management is related to the proper and judicious allocation of time. By proper allocation, I mean that we should know that how much of our time and which part of our daily schedule should be spent doing what task. While undertaking any task, the two parts of our being which are exclusively involved are the physical body and the mind. We should analyze and figure out which task requires more of physical vitality and less of more mental exertion and vice versa. Doing this would enable us to determine what time slot would be allocated to relevant task. For example, if the task is physically intensive one, a time slot that in which our body would be fresh and energetic should be preferred. If the task involves mental attentiveness, then the time slot would be set accordingly. If your primary task is to study for 5 hours every day, then it is up to you to find out which time suits you the best. The time should be selected in a way that your 5 hours that would be spent studying would be the most productive ones. Ideally, we should select the early mornings hour for study as it turns out of the productive for us. As we have discussed earlier in this book, there is a psychological reason behind we should prefer studying in the early hours in the morning. As studying main objective, it is only better to complete it as soon as possible in the day. Our main objective should always be given priority, even as far as serial number is concerned in the list of activities to be undertaken during the day. The reason behind this is when we undertake other activities which are not as important to us, we always do them half-heartedly. As in the back of our mind, we always know that the main objective of our day is still to come. Hence, we cannot do justice to the other activities. Therefore, it always is feasible to complete the main objective as soon as possible in the day, so that we may do justice to the other activities and also be mentally free. Working in this way, we can also enjoy our free time better. We shouldn't feel the guilt of not having completed our work. One of the most important concepts regarding the management of time is that we should realize that the moment of time that we are in now would never return. That this moment which we are living in is the present. It is all that we have, and how we utilize it to the fullest is completely up to us. The concept is about living in the present. The past has long gone and has buried its death. There were lessons to be learned from the past, which have already been learned. Let's go of it now. As the past has solved its purpose, the future we do not know, then what is the point in worrying about it? The only thing that we know for sure is that now, this moment we are here. This time, which is not our disposals, would never return, so it is for us to utilize it the fullest. Our logical may tell us otherwise. As time, it may tell us that there would be a point of time when we would be better suited and better equipped to the work at hand. But here is where we need to realize that this is the point where the vicious process of procrastination has started. At the first, it is a fact of our lethargy and emotions, and when that defines reasons, it takes the shield of logical and demands us to be rational. But here is the catch: these are but delusions created of our own mind and tricks played by our own minds on us, which need to be seen through. There was an incident in Mahabharata in which Bhim went around a city begging a drum and announcing that our king Yudhishthira has finally been able to control time. On hearing this, Yudhishthira called upon Bhim and asked for the reason for the false announcement. To this, Bhim replied that the day before the king had promised beggars to return again and receive his share of donation. The next day, Bhim said that his king should say with certainty that it would be possible to carry out the charity next day. Then undoubtedly the king has learned the secret behind controlling time, as only such person would make a promise such as on this. Yudhishthira understood his point and sent his guards to took the beggars so that he would make the donations as soon as possible. Never was a time better than where we are now, and never there will be.
Therefore, it's the same time to act. Ideal time. This title may sound a bit weird and applying to you. May sound weird because I don't believe that you have ever heard the person discussing time management talking about ideal time. Ideal time is nothing but the time that we keep to our own slaves and use it for our own leisure. If you are a workaholic, you would highly disagree with the fact that we all need some time to set aside of ourselves, so that in that time slot we may do whatever pleases us to or whatever relaxes us the most. As I have discussed earlier in this book, that this is omnipresent and everywhere. Every part of our life is made of time, teeny segments of time. But here we need to realize that we need to master the art of time management, so that we may enjoy a fulfilling life. The art of time management is focused on making our life better, so that we may discover our joy, fulfill ourselves and reach our true potential. We would need to be obsessed with our work to that extent that it takes away the essence of living. This is the reason that I firmly believe we should keep aside some time for ourselves on a daily basis, so they may communicate with our own slaves and our lives. The ideal time that we give ourselves would be such place in our daily schedules that it gives us enough opportunity to relax and rejuvenate after the day's long ordeal. The time that we would give to ourselves is very important from the point of view of our personal holistic development. It is very important for the process of enhancing our mental capabilities, to maintain the well-being of our bodies, and to broaden the horizon of our imagination. Being in our student life, you might feel that your main purpose is to study, and you would be right in saying that through studying in one of your primary purposes as a student, it is not only purpose but we are looking for and what we want to multi-dimensional development of a youth. As a student, it would interest you to devote as much time as you can to studies, as would help you to get into specialized profession. What we have to realize here is that getting into a profession is one thing, and doing justice to the duties and execution of responsibilities of the profession is another. After settling into profession, books would not come to your assistance anymore. What would really comes to your assistance and help you to reach staggering heights in your life would be personality. The kind of decision you make, the way you work, and amount of courage that you are able to summon as per requirements of various circumstances. I have received this conclusion by the close study of the lives of successful and unsuccessful professionals, and also what I learned from my own professional experiences. If you spend your entire student life grueling with books, later in your life you would realize that you have lost yourself somewhere between the numerous pages you flicked. If you follow the technique which I have mentioned in this book and frame a timetable to be followed regularly, sparing some agile time for yourself shouldn't be problem at all. Studying and reading as many books as you can would undoubtedly load you with information, but true knowledge would only be gained if you are able to allow yourself to reflect upon the information thus gathered, and this one can do in this ideal time. It is this time that we give to ourselves that helps us to evolve the way we think and our personality. Einstein used to play guitar. A great philosopher of 20th century, Charles Paul still used to listen to music for the least 2 hours on a day. Mahatma Gandhi used to feed the goats in his free time. Jesus used to often disappear for a few days, while the prophet used to go into the dunes of desert. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated while he was coming out after watching a play. From lips of all those great people, we gather that all of them used to keep aside some time to themselves, so that they may rejuvenate and re-energize their bodies and minds, and once again work as efficiently as they will always did. Our body and brain, even the muscles and the tissues in our body and the gray cells in our brains needs to relax in order to reinforce themselves with vitality and life. When we sleep during the night, the various tissues in our body are re-energized, so that may start anew the next day. One may use an axe to chop timber and may continue doing for a number of years, but if it does not spare time in order to sharpen the edges of the axe, the efficiency to the instrument is greatly reduced. Similarly, a little moment of ideal time is a requirement by us on a daily basis so that we may sharpen our minds and intellect and hence maintain and enhance our ability and efficiency to work. Now let me move on to giving you suggestions about that what can be done in ideal time. Thus allocated through in concept, this is time should ideally be spent on things that you love to do the most. I would like to share some ideas that might interest you. You might have a room in your house which is extremely meant for studying. What I would recommend is that when you are not busy or have completed the task assigned for the particular day, you should get out and get some fresh air. Or perhaps you could spend some time with your family members. You may discuss random issues with members of your family or your friend, but be sure to stay away from the issues which are not grave. Similarly, you might take out some time for your friends, call them over to your place or go out to visit them. Feel free to enjoy yourself as much as you like. Discuss the issues of common interest, maybe go out to market along with them or just share a good laugh. If you are interested in spending time with nature, observing the flowers, the birds or stars, studying the sky, then go ahead and do so. You would be surprised to know that Charles Darwin, while in his youth, had similar taste. Observing nature, which used to be one of his favorite pastime, in the future made him such a great scientist. If you are a bit introvert and prefer spending time with your own self rather than going to see others, then you might like spending your time listening to some music. For a while, you might even consider listening to some light music while studying. If you are a movie freak, then spend some time watching movies, or else you prefer watching television, then go ahead and do so. I know that most of you spend your time buried in your course book, but I don't know how much your time spent reading books which are not in your course. Studying books other than those prescribed in your course enhance the level of knowledge and information we have and also intellectually stimulates us. The idea is to employ your time in a way in which it interests you the most. In this way, you would be able to enjoy the life and receive the just reward for your day's hard work. Giving yourself some ideal time every day would also facilitate your mental as well as emotional development.